All right, this is the Coast to Coast Combat Hour. As always, Ed Carbajal here with Matthew Hawkins, brought to you by AllAccessMMA.com. Please check out All Access MMA for your mixed martial arts news. This week, we are joined by Bloody Elbows cartoonist, artist Chris Rini, who's got some personal work of his that he wants to publish, MMA related. Chris, how are you, sir?
I'm fantastic, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. So, uh, I guess let's kind of start at the beginning because you're a little bit new to a lot of the hardcore fans that follow this kind of stuff and might be
Sure.
really interested in it. What I guess let's just start. I ask a lot of the fighters, but you being an author about MMA and an artist, what got you into the fight sport from the beginning?
About 12 years ago, I uh, I ended up I had been a musician for a long time, and I quit my band because I was getting older. I was like, all right, I'm like 30. This ain't going. I'm never gonna pay the rent doing this. And I got married, and I just took a job. I ended up getting a job as an accountant. I kind of talked my way into it, and it was a real dead end job. There was a lot of dead time. Only had an hour or two of work a day, and I just started watching YouTube, and I just got totally hooked on watching fights. And I had no idea what was going on. I really didn't know. I didn't know anything about fighting, really. And I got kind of uh, I hit that. You can watch stuff and be like, oh yeah, this is great, this is great, this is great, this is great. And then after a while, you're like, I don't understand what's going on. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know why that little guy beat that big guy. And I watched Crow Cop knock out Bob Sapp, and I was like, that was the moment where I was like, okay, I need to start learning. I can't enjoy it anymore. I can't enjoy it, but like just as a person who knows nothing. And I spent probably about 2 years watching old fights and reading the history of the sport as best I could. Old, long form journalism, anything I could find. Like I found this oral history of UFC one that was really captivating, and I spent about 2 years watching fights before I watched anything that was contemporary. And I think it's that I stopped learning music. I stopped writing music, and I was like, I guess I'll just be an artist with a day job. And I just had that piece of my life. I need to keep learning all the time, and MMA was just waiting for me, and I caught me.
That's cool, man. I mean, I don't remember if you were working with Bloody Elbow when we first met. What was that, like 2016, maybe 2017?
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I wasn't. I wasn't. I was kind of floating aimlessly. I had left Vice, and I had a couple kids, and I was really just like kind of, I don't want to say struggling, but it was, it's hard when you got like two kids under 2 years old, a
mm,
job, and you're like, oh man, it's hard to like tell your wife, I'm gonna sink in a bunch of hours for like, exposure and low pay. And I just tapped out for a couple years from the MMA
yeah,
media.
yeah. But I mean, it obviously it brought you to it brought you to work, getting involved, kind of like on the side, like myself and Matt does, covering the sport, doing some type of exposure. Like for me, it's written. For Matt, it's this podcast, and
Hmm.
obviously for you, it's your artwork, and it looks like it led to something. And I just want to show some of the folks that are watching this, the artwork that's featured on your website, where you're selling the book over at chrisrini.com.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of this stuff. I remember you were sitting cage side the second time, I think it was, when Bellator came to New York.
That's right. At MSG, that was
We,
a great time.
yeah, man, and we were in the same media row, and I remember I just looked to my left, and I was like, "Oh, what is he doing over there?" And
Yeah.
the speed at which you kept up. Oh, this is a nice one with Masvidal.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
one of my favorites.
the speed that you kept up with putting together pieces like this, and just with what was going on, I thought was fascinating. And then I feel like after that, I started seeing more and more of your stuff on Bloody Elbow. Can you just talk about like how you got into art? Like, did you take classes? I mean, because the human body, especially when you're drawing musculature and stuff like that, it can be hard to draw. Can it?
Yeah, I guess so. It's like one of those things you never stop learning, but it is also like my primary passion, I guess. I didn't have any real formal training as a young man, but I did. I just drew on my own, and like the stuff I did on my own was enough to get into this college called FIT, which is a fashion school, but it had a very small fine arts department. I got in there just based on the scribbles in my notebook, like the stuff when I was supposed to be taking notes in high school, I was just drawing, and I showed that to them. They let me in, and that was my first experience taking art classes. And I loved life drawing. That was probably my favorite thing to do. Like, you're just in a room with a nude model for 3 hours, and you learn to draw anywhere from 2 minutes to 20-minute long stretches. And I realized, I was doing MMA artwork, and then I kind of looked back through my old drawings and stuff that I'd kept from college, and that stuff, the poses, like 2 to 5 minutes, that stuff really still spoke to me. It was, I'm sure you guys know, you look at anything from when you're a young man 20 years ago, you're usually embarrassed by everything, the things you said, the things you wore, the music you listened to. But I look back at those drawings and I loved them. So I started just being on Twitter during the fights with the same stuff, charcoal and a newsprint pad. And I was like, I'm just going to draw these things. I'm draw them as they happen, and like practice, like looking at a fight, thinking about what the most significant moment was, what was beautiful, what was amazing. From doing so much artwork about fights, I feel like I see new things where the human body looks almost like it's dancing. So much of combat imagery is centered around like the slobber knocker shot, like the punch to the jaw where the skin is flapping around. I'm like, man, that is some tired shit. It is like, done to death. So you'll very rarely ever see me do some sort of impact shot like that. I'm looking for something different. So I'm looking for something about telling a story about people and like the amazing things that they're capable of. And, the violence is the kind of the end result, but there's a lot going on before that happens.
Do you find that, I'm not sure how many you're born and raised in New York and still live there. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right. I've only lived in 3 places in life: Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. And sorry.
No problem. I guess my point I was going to get at is living in New York. I live in California, Southern California. So I've had MMA access. I've been going to events since the 90s. Whereas in New York, you were kind of, along with Ed, you guys were kind of, other than the New Jersey events, you guys were kind of blacked out from local events happening in front of you. You got to watch stuff on TV. You got to watch stuff on YouTube. Once you started to be able to go to these events and see these fighters up close and up personal, did that change the way you drew stuff and the way you saw stuff and kind of the way you interpreted the reality of what the sport contains?
I would say the short answer is yes. It's borderline addictive, wanting to be like that close to the cage. It is the only way you could replicate it from home. And I don't even know if you could do this anymore, but to go onto Fight Pass and you could pick your camera angle. You pick one camera angle and watch like a 25-minute fight just from one unmoving camera. That's kind of the closest you can get to being at a live event. I know I went to a couple Glory events when they were here in the city, and I did get a taste of like what it's like when there's like that amazing one-punch knockout and the whole place erupts. You can see like, oh man, it's almost like I find live MMA to be a cross between like a sporting event and like a rock concert. Like when a new fight happens, it's like when the band starts a new song, and then if it ends in something spectacular, it's like the big crescendo. There are like a lot of parallels.
No, I went to an event that was had Megadeth performing between fights.
Right.
So it is
that?
The Affliction 1, Fedor versus Tim
That's
Sylvia.
right. That's right. I Forgot about that.
But so that's cool. I mean, you're talking to. I mean, me personally, I know Ed's been to a bunch of events. I've been to over 200 live MMA events. So you're preaching to the no. I mean, I have a long history that nobody else wants to keep hearing the story about. But yeah, so I mean, I have especially Ed. But yeah, I mean, so I get what you're saying. I mean, I've tried to explain to people like Bellator events, the floor there is like a party, and UFC has become more strict over the years. But I can imagine how seeing the stuff up close and personal, especially if you get up to press row, where you actually get like, you're getting an expensive seat to the event to be able to see it. The blood, the punches, I think, and we talk about Bellator this past weekend. I think opened up the doors to even more people's eyes with the empty arena and guys taking grind shots. I mean, right? I don't know if you guys saw that, but that was one of the most painful. Yeah. And we've all been around it up close, so we've seen it. But hearing it as vividly as it was almost disturbing to me, even somebody who's seen it as much. So I imagine being that close has to have a huge influence on every and all the little details of your art.
Yeah, it really does. It's man, it's a thrilling kind of thing. I got to be, I think I was at one or two events that ended up in the book, and even that, that has an effect on my thoughts. You know what I mean? Like it changes whether you're live or not. It does have an effect, and I don't know. It's pretty exciting. That's it. I'll leave it at that.
Well, I mean, talking about exciting, I know you're excited to have this book out. Before we started recording, you were talking about how surprised at how well it's doing. This is on your website, chrisrini.com. The cover art, Fine Art of Violence by you. Mm-hmm. Can you just talk about like what this particular work of yours entails?
Sure.
And I actually have one of the things I don't know if it's in this book, you can let me know, but one of the things I'm most impressed about from the artwork that you've been putting out on social is the way that you draw Dana White. Actually, I really like the way that you kind of make him look like the Kingpin from the Marvel comics.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's my my model for him. Yeah. So Dana is not in the book.
Okay.
So at Bloody Elbow, I do the equivalent of editorial cartoons, where I'm like the jester. That's the one person who can like tell the king how it is. It's like I get to poke fun at the kind of trash fire that occurs within MMA. And it can come off as cynical. Hopefully it comes off as funny, and like hopefully it comes off as like a lighthearted kind of thing. But really, this book, I wanted to make it about the fighters. I wanted to make it about fighting, and I wanted to remove everything. That's why there's no cage, there's no advertisements, there's no crowd, there's no ref. I think I put the ref in one or two drawings just because they were integral to that moment. Mm-hmm. But I wanted this to be like a celebration. I do love the sport. I do love what's happening, and I think it is magical, like this thing. And I feel like the sport truly suffers because there's no season. There's that relentless steamroller of boom, next one, boom, next one. And the more fights we get, the more fights we lose, from our collective memory. These performances that people put on, they get overshadowed. If you have the greatest performance of your life, but I don't know, it was on a bad card, or somebody else got kicked in the balls, and like stole the headlines. And I felt like I'm gonna draw from January 1st to December 31st. I'm gonna make something special that shows people that what happened matters and deserves to be remembered. And some of these people had the year of their careers. Some of these people were like made their mark, and this is their moment. Yeah. And I wanted to make something that you could look at 10 years from now and be like, this is fantastic. This is beautiful. I understand what was going on back then. I understand what was relevant. I understand the arc of someone's career and the state of the sport in that moment, and I enjoy looking at it. You won't see like the ads from 10 years ago. You won't see like, things that don't matter anymore. So stuff ages out of relevance really fast these days. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to strip it down to its most timeless essence.
I feel like, I don't know if you can see this. I feel like my
Mm-hmm,
photo I took
mm-hmm.
is basically
Yeah,
the exact same image. Can you go back to
Oh,
that?
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I took this picture at. I mean,
Beautiful.
it is basically the exact same image that you
Oh,
drew.
I
that's
love
nice.
it. Oh, I love it. Good, good,
That's
good.
that's funny.
Yeah.
So a couple things. Well, there isn't a lot of artists that have done a lot of MMA stuff. There is photography, but there's not a lot of art. One person that I have, and I don't know if he still does stuff or not, a gentleman named Guy Smalley. Um,
Oh, sure.
I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
about 10 or 12 of his prints that I got signed by a bunch of fighters, and his stuff's a little bit more. It's not the same style as yours, but
No.
I wasn't sure if you were aware or
Yeah,
recognize any of his work.
I kind of keep track on as many people as I can who make artwork about MMA. And in fact, one of them, we kind of talk, in DMs, and I actually invited him to put some artwork in volume 2 of this book.
Mm.
Do you know Gorilla the Bear?
I don't, not
Uh,
off the top of my head.
Fantastic artist, wonderful artist, really lovely guy. He did some shirts with Reebok. I think he did a Nate Diaz shirt and a Khabib shirt, but he does really fun, creative things where he kind of takes he has a very comic book style, and very, very very, very realistic looking portraits. But then he adds a lot of very fun elements. Like he did a John Jones versus Daniel Cormier standoff or a face off where they're all in like 80s gear and they have mullets. It's very, very fun. He's got a real lighthearted touch, and I really like his work. He's a nice guy, so I asked him to participate in this book next year, because that's my other thing. This is going to be an annual publication.
Oh, nice.
I did a limited print run, and I would encourage anybody who's listening to go to chrisrini.com and get a copy. I've sold more than half the run already in just 2 days, and I am just thrilled that people have responded so positively. I also have it available as a PDF. If you don't want to spend the money on a hard copy, that's understandable. Everybody's kind of holding their breath while America goes
Yeah.
down in flames.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is the website up on the screen for folks that are watching the video version of this podcast. But that's the website, chrisrini.com. And I saw you actually put that out today or yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
How well it was doing. I mean, it looks like the success is motivation to do an annual publication. Are
Yeah,
you gonna? Is
go
it
ahead.
gonna be like I don't know? You can say it for this one or plans for the next one, but will it be mostly focused on UFC, or are you gonna plan on adding like Bellator or other promotions?
Oh, I
Yeah.
would very much like to have other promotions in it. There's one Demetrius Johnson piece in the
Mm.
book, and I did. I initially planned on having Bellator and some One and some I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the Japan
Ryzen?
Ryzen,
Right.
exactly, and it just didn't quite work out because I didn't. I didn't. I shouldn't say realize, but there's a lot of fights. That's all it
Mm.
comes down to. There are so many fights. I actually have a nice drawing of Ryan Bader versus Fedor that didn't make. There's a bunch of drawings that didn't make it into the book. I
Oh,
had to.
you just lit up Matt's eyes when you said that.
Hey, so one of the things I learned is that I'm going to cover fewer fights in the
Mm.
next volume, but I'll be able to make more images because I would like to dedicate a lot more time to the greatest fights of the year. I wouldn't I look at Joanna versus Zhang Weili, and
Yeah.
man, I should that fight deserves more than a single image.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I learned the hard way while making this book. Because sometimes I was like, oh, that knockout was awesome. I have to do it, you know. So I have like 3 Nico Prices in the book, which is super fun. They're really great. But on the other hand, I'm like, you know, the greater like almost like the pyramid, you know, like you gotta address the the pillars of your era, you know.
Mhm.
So I'll be looking at 2020 with clearer eyes next year.
God, it's a shame because I mean, it seems like Japan would be. You talked about Crow Cop and SAP kind of being something that got you interested in at least knowing what the heck was going on. But you talk
Right.
about like a cartoonish. I mean,
Right.
Bob Sapp was the king of cartoon MMA, basically. I mean, he literally fought an anime character in the ring.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, so the idea. I mean, I assume that there's got to be somewhere back of your mind that you'd love to sit ringside in Japan and one of their big
Oh.
events and have all the
Oh.
fireworks and
Without a
chaos
doubt.
going on.
Without a doubt, I would absolutely love to do like a Japan event. Without a doubt, yeah, I would love to do. And there's actually an artist who I really love. His name is Jonathan Edwards, who publishes these really simple little softcover books of just landscapes from all the different cities he visits. And I'm like, oh God, genius, genius! You know, like to finance your international travels by, you know, painting literally what you're hanging out and looking at. Yeah, I would love to draw MMA all over the world. Um, it's a shame that more that other promotions aren't quite willing to um, expand their view to that sort of thing. One guy, he was like, "You're kind of like that guy who draws, you know, the court reporter, but for fights." And I was like, you know, that's really good. That's really good. That's how I'm going to treat this. And I feel like, man, you know, the sport could benefit from a little like embrace the reality that it's kind of insane, you know, and just go all out, you know.
Well, it's pretty crazy how you can actually keep up with something as fast as competitive martial arts. Like we were saying before, you did the this past weekend the UFC Vegas 10 event. I forget the number. I go by the
Yeah,
social
yeah,
media thing because there's so many different names for them now. But
yeah.
like you did like a live thread on your Twitter of
Mm-hmm.
artwork from that event, and it's just like, well, I mean, I'm wondering and again, I've had a short glimpse of it because I was doing my own work when we were in Meter Row at the Garden, but it's like, wow, I mean, like, how do you get the colors and the outlining in so fast to keep up with something that just happened to make it still, you know, to put it out there digitally on top of all the work just drawing it, but then to get it out there on time that it's still happening with the event that's trending that everyone just saw.
Right.
So
Well, it's like you have to do it. You have to just forget about like the pressure, you know, like you have to just do it. And I always, when I start, I'm like, I wonder if I'm going to have a good night or a bad night, you know, because
mm,
we all have bad nights, you know. Um, but if I do it all the time, then I'm going to do it well. That's the best way to put it. Like
yeah.
I have to like put myself in that mindset. Like I'm an artist. This is what I do. And because I get nerves, you know, I feel like, am I embarrassing myself? I'm about to just be like, hey, what's up? So let me put this out there for your audience. I'm on Twitter relentlessly at Rini MMA. That's RINI MMA. And every fight night, I primarily do the main card. That's the other thing, you know. Maybe I'll draw a little bit of the prelims, but I don't publish those. Those are like my warm ups. But you know, I got to get the kids down and all that stuff. So I draw the
Yeah.
main card and I thread that out, and it's become like one of my signature things. I've actually had people commission me to draw in that style a fight that they like. You know, like so I had some guy uh, commissioned me to do a bunch of sumo matches in that style, which I gotta say was one of the best jobs I've ever had. I loved it so
I feel
much.
like
And then,
I feel like you put that out. I feel like I've seen sumo
yeah,
stuff.
I asked for permission to share that. And then another guy, he had me do a bunch of GSP fights. I'm like, hell yeah! Like I'll sit down and like watch a bunch of GSP, and you know him like kicking Michael Bisping in the head, and you know beating kneeing Matt Serra to the body, and like all these real classic moments. Yeah, I drew a bunch of those in that exact style. You know, like I was like, look, just gonna bang them out fast, just the way I do online, and they're like, that's exactly what I want, you know. And there is something about it where it's full of life, you know, like that, the speed and the urgency that you make these things, that's why they're enjoyable. If I were to take those same exact moments and draw them as photorealistically as possible, they would be like an overcooked steak. You'd be like, yeah, that's steak, but I don't want it, you know, like it just doesn't always things don't stay alive forever.
Are you super critical of yourself? I mean, do you do a lot of, like, when you're doing the fight night stuff, I imagine you're just kind of producing it and getting it up online. But when you're doing stuff kind of behind the scenes, when you've got a little bit more time, do you do like do you do a bunch and then is it like, oh, that's the one I want? Or is it just, have you gotten so used to good at it that you're like, every piece has its own flavor or attraction to you?
You see, I'm talking about my work in general, or just the fight night stuff?
Well, mainly the fight night stuff or work in general. I mean, I struggle to draw stick man, so I appreciate
Right.
I appreciate the ability to create art even as abstractly as some of the stuff you do, that you can look at it and go, hey, that's Weili Zhang versus Joanna, whereas you'd look at mine and you'd go, that's, you know, pile of garbage.
Well, I'll say this for my work in general. I learned from, you know, you go to museums and you see, like, especially if they do a retrospective of any famous artist. If you ever heard of the person's name and they're at a museum, I recommend you go there. And what you'll find is that they made a ton of work. And you're going to see, like, you know, for every one piece, you know, you're like, oh, I remember that. I've seen it in a commercial or a TV show or a poster. There's going to be like 50 that you've never seen before. And then you're going to realize that great artists make a ton of work. And the only way to make great work is to make a lot of it. You will never be able to pick your spot. You just have to let it go. Let it go, let it go, let it go. And then, you know, sometimes I don't even know I made great work until 10 years later when I look back at it. And I'm like, shit, man, I was good. I didn't even know it, you know? And I go through those like real highs and lows that some people go through, where you're just like, you know, I was putting out this book feeling like I said earlier, like, am I embarrassing myself? Am I making a fool of myself by putting this out in the world and charging money and telling people it's great? Like, I thought it was great. And then you have these moments where, like, am I fooling myself? But for the most part, like, I know who I am. And I know I was born to do this. I was made to do this. It's like, it's the vision I have, and I'm just kind of bringing it to life. And I know that if I stick with what I believe in, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
This is this is
this is the class. This is the Dana White. This is how I draw him.
Yeah, and this is from your Twitter at Rini MMA. But yeah, this is one of the Dana White images that I mean, if I had to pick one of your artwork that, like, I knew I could identify you as the artist that drew it, would be any of these images of him.
Oh yeah,
you got the little Caesar thing crown on him on this.
Mm-hmm.
That's is there any, which brings me to the question, is there any particular person that you like to draw that's like your go-to, or and the opposite, is there anyone that's very difficult to draw?
You know who's super difficult? Dustin Poirier.
Is it because he moves so much?
No. I'm talking about, say, for MMA Squared, for the cartoons that I draw. He's just like a good-looking guy,
normal dude. He doesn't have normal qualities.
Yeah, the only real thing is that he's got this real sweet pompadour of hair, you know. So I like that. That's like what I focus on. But I really enjoy fighters who have what's the word? Who have kind of a signature thing about them that lets you know who they are. Like, I love to draw Daniel Cormier. I love to draw the polo shirt with tucked into the sweatpants, and those little weird triangles that his goatee forms, you know. Like, I love people who have these like symbols that make them. I used to love to draw Conor McGregor in suits. That was always a good one. Like you could always then you could get like ridiculous purples and golds and teal and like lime green. You could go all out and like fancy shoes. I like people who have like some sort of flair to them. I used to love to draw Henry Cejudo. Even though he's kind of a weirdo. He's got this massive head and like this big shock of hair and that like weird Wolverine kind of. Is it a beard? Is it a sideburn that has gone rogue? I like that. He was a real fun guy to draw. So yeah, those are, who's a little tough is Cyborg. So I would always draw her as the Schwarzenegger, with the with the cyborg head. I was like, I'll do that. That'll be cool.
Have you ever, I've seen your stuff, and obviously, like being an old school fan like me, have you ever thought about doing like a kind of a throwback thread where maybe you watch like an old Pride event and you do a art of those, you talk about Japan and the cartoonish, but I imagine like a Sap Noguera or a, Fedor.
I would actually love to do that. I truly, truly would love to do that. I'm kind of hoping that this book takes off to the point that I can do, I was thinking of doing it as a GOAT, like the GOAT series where I make an entire book dedicated to the career of the greatest fighters ever. I would do one of the 3 great heavyweights of Pride. That's boom. Or I would do a book of the Pride tournaments. That I would absolutely love to do that. That would be the kind of thing, dude, you got mortgage payments, you got all that stuff. It's definitely something I'd have to plan out and make sure that the audience is there and they want to finance that sort of thing, because hell yeah, man, I'll do that in a heartbeat. Yeah. It's hard. I did in 2014, I got a booth in the UFC Fan Expo.
Oh, nice.
But you know what? Back then I used to do way more historical artwork, and I was really disappointed at the fans who were like, this is the quote that like, it was like a gunshot. It was like a knife in my gut. The kid goes, nobody wants to see these old guys. And I was like,
oh, wow.
And I had like this cool set of portraits of like Randy Couture and Tim Sylvia, and I was like, man, all right. Like loud and clear, kid, you gotta be careful. This book alone is like, it has a story to it, and the point is that it's timeless. I want to make something that doesn't run out of steam once the next event comes along. So that's the short answer is yes, I'd love to do it. And the long answer is like, man, I'm gonna walk carefully.
Some of us like those old guys. There's a reason why we have pictures of Ali and standing over Sonny Liston and not,
I know, right?
Mayweather standing over Gotti. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's 100% right.
That's funny that you mentioned the Fan Expo, because that was actually my next question, was if you've ever done anything like maybe if you did something more along the lines, because obviously you went to the UFC Fan Expo, and the UFC fans are always kind of more the flocks are usually more of the casuals than folks like us that watch everything. So maybe if you did the same thing, like say you got a table at like a Comic-Con or a Horror-Con or something like that, where it's more of a mixed crowd, because it's more of a genre or a convention that brings in a general mix of people, you'd probably get a little bit more, especially now that you have a proof of work to bring with you now with this book.
Right.
If you went and sat there, not at the big one, obviously not the New York Comic-Con, because that thing is just a social media frenzy anyway. Yeah. But like if you did one of the smaller ones, like if you did like the Jersey one or the one that they do up in Mohegan Sun every summer, you know what I mean? Like if you did something like that, because there's people, and those are good networking events for you too.
It's true. I would do that as a combo, because in the, up until COVID hit, I've been working with an author to illustrate a graphic novel that has a little overlap with the fight scene. It's a historical novel, and bare knuckle boxing figures into it. And I think if we get that off the ground, and I have that to promote, I would love to like I'd put those two things together. That would be something I'd really be happy to take on the road, because honestly, I've really enjoyed. I did the Javits Center in Manhattan. They've had a MMA fan expo, a couple of those
Oh
that I've
yeah,
done. I think I've done about 3 of them, and I really enjoy meeting people. I met people from Reddit, like the cesspool of the intellectual internet, and they were all right, man. They were good people.
yeah,
So it's basically, if you're willing to step outside, it's automatically a redeeming point in your favor. So I got to say, look, you know, Carbazal, I met you, and I was like, shit, man, going out and meeting people, it really does pay dividends. I really have enjoyed the majority of the people that I met through MMA. So yeah, the short answer is I'd love to be out there more often. Yeah, I have to pick my spots, but
yeah. Pick your spots, and you obviously have to have a thick skin.
yeah.
One of the places I write for, 137 PM, they push a lot of that of Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V stuff, and
Oh yeah.
one of his things is just to like put your work out, whether it's quick, dirty, or whatever. But as long as you're putting out the content and stuff that it's fulfilling to you, fuck the haters. Let them hate, because they're usually hating because they're not doing anything anyway.
Yeah. I've kind of experienced that through one internet forum that I used to be part of, where now that I work, full time in the media, I don't feel as welcome there anymore. Whereas, if I'm being a fan and just chiming in and having an opinion and doing stuff, it's a little easier to people to tolerate what you have to say. And then if you have something that somebody else doesn't, it is, maybe you're not welcome. And it was hard. It was sad. It was hard for me to hear that, but I accept it. I do. I know a lot more people in the media, and I feel like I can turn to them for camaraderie. And I'm like, all right, one door closes, the next one opens.
Basically, my last thing are 2 questions.
Sure.
Any fights you look forward to coming up, drawing, or anything that's jumping out that you're kind of drooling at the idea of doing? I imagine like Costa Adesanya, something like that might be in your
That
mix.
is number one. That is number one on my list, man. I am thrilled. I'm thrilled for that one.
And
I love. I'm a tall, skinny guy. I love drawing tall, skinny guys. You're out there, go get them.
And I guess my second one would be, if there was any 2 fighters you could have matched in the history of MMA that you've watched, what 2 guys would you have loved to have drawn fighting, even if they never fought each other? Just any weight class, 2 guys you could put in a cage and get your artistic juices going.
Just for that, I would have loved to have seen Brock Lesnar and either one, John Jones or Daniel Cormier. Like the squat tank of a man, or like the slender man, build. Either one, just like squaring off with Brock. I wasn't really, I wasn't working in the media when Brock was in his heyday, so I kind of missed that. But I've thrown him into a couple comics every once in a while, and he is an absolute joy to draw.
I feel like I went to an event, his debut fight. He fought for K1 in the US.
Oh yeah.
And there was like Brazilian dancers. They did it in the Coliseum in LA, 900,000 seats, and there was they had a DJ going, and I mean, you had Nicolas Cage
I
in the
saw
crowd.
that on TV.
I
Wow.
went there. It was
wow.
Sakuraba, Hoist Gracie too. Yeah, no, anything that's happened in Southern California in the last 20 years, I haven't really missed. So
that's awesome, man. I can't even imagine what it's like to have that kind of access. I don't even throw down to go to the Madison Square Garden events. They're just like crushingly expensive, So if the USC comes here, I'll go to Jersey, or I'll go to Brooklyn at the Barclays Center.
I haven't done that one yet. I came to MSG 3 times for the McGregor fight, Alvarez, and then the first Bellator, the Fedor Mitrione.
Yeah.
And then 2 years ago, the first UFC ever fell on my birthday. My 40th birthday was Cormier Lewis. So, and that's
nice.
why I get a chance to come out there and hang out with Ed and drink a bunch of expensive beers.
Yep. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, the Pensie's in the MSG. I always joke with Matt. I'm like, don't you own that place? Don't you own that place now? Because Matt's every time Matt's come to New York, it's like, okay, where am I going to meet you? I don't even have to ask him. If he comes to New York, he's going to be out there on his phone texting me, where are you? You know what I mean? Like, and then when it's inside and beers and shots and stuff. But
I love it.
but listen, I gotta ask you because you mentioned it. I mean, you just said you prefer Barclays MMA over MSG MMA?
No.
Okay, okay.
Price.
No, the price point, 100%. Matt knows. Matt knows. Yeah.
But you have the curse though, the curse of the Barclays Center that
I was gonna, well, he knows. If I mean, he's from around here. He knows.
Dude, I've been to more snake bit MMA than you can imagine.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
Oh yeah, wait. You might have me for quantity, but the ratio of bad fight nights I've been to is
bad. I thought you meant canceled fights.
Oh,
but you're right there too. Pound for pound, New York is the king of that.
Oh Lord, yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, because I mean, just because you're talking about snake bit events, canceled fights. I remember I found out about when the Fedor Mitrione first time when that fell apart. I found out before anybody. I found out from Matt because he sends me a picture of the sign on the door when he's walking into Staples Center or wherever it was, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I remember I was at Jeff. I think both of you guys met Jeff, my buddy that lives in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
But like I was at his place ready to watch the fights, and Matt sends me that image, and I was like, "You got to be shitting me!" And I hold it up to my buddies, and I was like,
"But that's awful."
Yeah, Matt's got stories too, man.
No, it's a bad feeling. Imagine getting on an airplane to watch Fedor fight, and then finding out 30 minutes before the event starts that Mitrione's got gallstones.
Dude, that's the worst.
And you're holding on to like 7 people's tickets that still owe you money for their ticket.
Oh,
that'll make for a hard afternoon right there.
Oh, that's a rough conversation, right?
Yeah.
That's like, you still driving up here from San Francisco to San Jose? Yeah, the fight's canceled. I hope you're a Patricio Pitbull fan or Patricio Pitbull fan now.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Awesome. Well, real quick, why don't we wrap up here real quick? But politics aside, everything. Real quick, who wins Woodley Covington on Saturday?
Oh man, Covington's gonna win.
I agree. How about you, Ed?
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. I mean, I haven't seen anything recently from Woodley that makes me think otherwise, especially if we're people judge a lot by their last fight, and obviously that's the one that's gonna stick in your mind. So yeah, I can't disagree.
Well, there it is.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Yeah, so UFC fans, there is a UFC event, 15-fight card, ESPN Plus on Saturday, headlined by Woodley and Covington. Cowboy Cerrone in the co-main event against Nico Price. So that is available this Saturday for fight fans, and Invicta's on Thursday. Check
and
your
Chris
local
Rini's
listings.
book is available right here on chrisrini.com.
That's right.
There you go. Chris, why don't you throw out your Twitter handles? Any way, Facebook, any way anybody want to get a hold of you, why don't you throw that out right now?
Okay. Let's see. chrisrini.com for the book, and you can contact me through the site if you need to for some reason. I'm available and posting pretty much daily on Twitter at Rini MMA, and I have a Patreon. That's where I put like sneak previews for the book before it comes out. And actually, everybody who has been a patron of me gets a free PDF copy of the book.
Oh, nice.
I felt like that was a great thing I could do, and I'll kick up my Instagram again. It is Chris_Rini. That is my Instagram. I guess I'll get back on there. I'm getting back in the world. And thank you guys for having me on so much. It was a real pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you making the time.
No problem.
Check us out again at allaccessmma.com. You can follow the podcast at Combat Hour on Twitter.
Can I throw one thing out there? I'm so sorry.
No, do it.
Every UFC event, I'm on Twitter. I'll be drawing the live card and posting it at Rini MMA as well. That's like it's a fun way to keep up with with the fights live if you're on there.
Well, you got a new follower, and I'll certainly be checking him out this Saturday. That'll,
Awesome.
I like that companion to the fight. So, again, fans can follow the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram. And Big Head Carb, Old Head Carb. I'll get it right one of these days. Old Head Carb on Twitch. Which I saw our program streaming on there, so that's a pretty cool little add-on to the show. So, thanks again, Chris, for joining us. Great meeting you, great talking to you, and I look forward to checking out your work from this day on, man.
Thank you so much, man. It was a real pleasure meeting you as well. Ed, great to see you.
Thanks, man.